on the consent agenda. This item number 3, I didn't understand what this, it says, resolution adjudicating costs and penalties for parcels cleaned pursuant to resolutions adjudicating the same to be menaced to public health, safety, and welfare on August 2nd of 2022 in a case number there. Can somebody explain to me what that item is? Because I didn't understand it. The other question was, I think we've got about $40,000 in expenses on these debris removal and cleanup areas, and the I'm curious where our budget for that stands for this fiscal year on money we've got to continue to do cleanups. Thank you.
Good morning, Drew Martin, City Attorney. Councilman, on the first question in terms of what these are, that's the administrative hearing is simply the process that has to be followed in order to declare these properties to be what they need to be declared in order to then clear them and get them ready for other usage. And so that's the general reference to the adjudicating costs and penalties for the parcels cleaned. In terms of the fund, I don't have the exact number, but I think what I heard this week was that that fund was down to about $80,000 or $90,000 left of what could be used to continue to clear properties.
8 or 9 or
80 or 90.
So that, like this, I think we had 40,000 here.
It's approximately. They tend to run about $5,000 or $10,000 per,
Right,
depending
yeah.
on the size and the condition. And I don't have any expertise on this, but to my eye, most of them were closer to 10 than 5. 7,500, 8,800,
So
that
we'd
kind
be
of thing.
getting pretty low for the fiscal year that ends in September.
I think that's right, and Mr. Malmbecca may be able to address the fund a little better if he can squeeze through there. But yeah, I think the fund is down to $80,000 or $90,000 is what I had heard. Is that cool? $84,000.
You know, is Miss Dotson still here? Her name is on these things, or is there somebody who's?
Her resignation is final, and she's left the city as of about a week or so ago. I don't know if there's been an announcement about an interim yet or not from the administration.
Okay.
All right, Councilwoman Lee.
Thank you.
I just want to note for the record that I don't see any Ward 2 properties. I haven't seen any Ward 2 properties in the past 3 or 4 meetings. So if you need a list of dilapidated properties or any properties that we consider to be a menace, I'd be happy to provide that for the planning department.
Councilman Harley.
Yes, Mr. Malmbecca. Along this item of getting money for these properties, we're down to 84,000, and that is for dilapidated properties. Are there any other funding sources that we can be looking at?
Yeah, so I think Fidelis Malembeka, CFO, there are 3 buckets I think you look at. One is this amount that's under the planning and developments, the general fund budget, which has approximately 84,000 left. Then you do have the appropriation from the legislators, particularly I think Representative Crudup, right? So that's one bucket there.
How much?
I think
250.
250, right?
And he's already have that designated for a particular area.
I think last time there was a discussion here, it was his district in particular.
Okay.
Right. And then we do have the other grant funds. There is approximately $480,000 left, but there is an encumbrance of approximately $1.3 million. This is the money that goes to the blight partners, so the blight elimination program, Voice of Calvary, Habitat for Humanities, and other partners that receive those funds.
So we don't have any. What's the bottom line on that? Those funds.
Yeah. So what is not encumbered, what's available is about 80,000. The 1.3 is already encumbered. So that means there's an agreement in place that those funds will go to those partners,
So we have 480,000
roughly in that
until the
fund.
end of the fiscal year that's available for us to do
Point.
something with.
Point of order. Since this is consent agenda, you know, if we're going to have those kind of separate discussions, we'll have to take this.
That's fine.
Take the items out individually based on the reading of this. So
That's fine. Thank you.
I would ask if you would send a memo over to everybody on what's left and then the other funds that could be used for this from other revenue sources within that department. Okay?
Will do.
Now,
Thank you.
make a motion to take one now, Mr. President, please.
You're free to make a motion, Councilman Stokes.
Okay, I so move that we take out number 5.
Is there a second? All right, it's been moving properly second that we remove item 5, which is in Councilman's ward, from consent agenda. Are we removing this for separate discussion, or you just
Yes,
want to remove?
separate discussion.
Are we removing this for separate discussion? All in favor of the removal of this item for separate discussion?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the item has been removed. Now we have consent agenda on the floor as amended. Any questions or comments about consent agenda on the floor as amended? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, consent agenda has passed. Now we will take up the item that has been taken up, number 5. Clerk, if you would read number 5.
Order authorizing the mayor to execute a contract between the City of Jackson and Love Company Incorporated to demolish a structure, foundation, steps, and driveway, to cut grass and weeds, to remove trash and debris, and to perform other work to remedy the conditions of state-owned property that constitute a menace to the public health, safety, and welfare according to Mississippi Code annotated section 21-19-11 for KCE-23-323, located at 2148 Martin Luther King Drive, parcel 104-17-50.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moving properly second on this item. Councilman Stokes?
Thank you, League. The concern I have is Councilman Foote gave us a map a few meetings ago concerning state-owned property. And this is a prime example of the concern that some council members have. State-owned property, but the city's paying for it. The state has way more money than we have. And it seems like there should be a plan in place where the state can give to this city. This is a time frame of we're gonna have all houses torn down that is owned by the state, all lots cleaned on a regular basis that's owned by the state. I can't prove it, but I can almost assure you that in other jurisdictions, other cities, there's a roadmap. They're probably making sure that state-owned property, because all cities throughout the state of Mississippi have state-owned property. But in the city of Jackson, it's such an eyesore that people just can't believe the reality of this. That's the first concern. Then the second one is on Martin Luther King. You know, we experiencing seeing more and more overgrown lots, and you know, you name it after a giant in the world of giants, but the condition of the street seem as though there's no love for Dr. King. So we think that somebody should get on the stick and make sure that we can allow the street to show the love for Dr. King in his name. Visitors come to Meg Edwards Home and to Freedom Corner, and they drive down Dr. King Drive, and overgrown lots, abandoned buildings that should have been torn down. fires have burnt structures that's still standing that should have been torn down. And the vast majority of these situations are state-owned properties. Could we maybe get an audience? I think they have talked to the city before, but there's no progress. There's a lot of talk, and it seems like it's one-sided talk, but there's no direct action or plan of action where money is earmarked. We have $3 million that we're going to spend in the city of Jackson each year. Thank you.
Councilman Hartley.
Yes, Mr. President, and I appreciate any boundaries here, if you can point them out if I stray off course here. But my colleague is absolutely correct. A lot of these state properties have been used for criminal purposes, abandoned houses, overgrown lots, et cetera. And the state, it seems as though they have no type of responsibility here. I've spoken with a member of the state, the gentleman that sells the properties. He said by law, the state isn't required to come back out and clean properties. By law, the state isn't required to tear down houses and other things. Well, it should be noted that by law, they are creating a public health hazard. I mean, the same as any other individuals that we take to environmental court, we can't take the state to court. And they're doing the same thing, creating a public health hazard. They're also presenting a situation that decrease our property values on our streets. So we have to take something forward to the state. And I'm not sure if your memo or whatever can address it. I thought perhaps we had one of the concerns brought up was the lobbyists. And when we had our legislative agenda, I'm hoping that that was one of the things that was included in there, is to ask the state to go ahead, set aside money from the sale of all the properties around the state, give back to the municipalities a percentage so that municipalities can go out and help keep these properties clean and don't be a public health hazard. So frankly, I don't want the state to participate in crime. But when they leave these properties and stuff there abandoned, then that's exactly what they're doing. And somebody need to call them on it. But at any rate, I look forward to your response and your action, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Drew, turn your mic.
If there's any specific questions other than what's been mentioned, if you'll provide them to me, I'll try to address them as best I can. I think it's probably a legislative issue ultimately.
It is.
But be glad to help with that.
Madam Vice President.
Drew, there are 5 properties in this consent agenda that are state-owned, and it's concerning to me because they need to be held accountable. We are held accountable because they're in our wards, and we have to, justify the conditions, and we're diverting money that we could be using for other things to fix up their property. So I
Sure.
would like to see this.
Sure.
moved forward.
Understood.